Councilmember Ball.
Yes, sir. Let's start with the current contract and the current shelter. Not sure who to direct this question to, so I'll just ask it, and all the department heads are here, so one of y'all can answer it. Let's say your department's audited. They find 19 findings, and those findings include making operational changes without the consent of the city manager, willfully and maliciously firing employees and agencies to hire your own friends, allowing unsafe environments for clients, inadequate or non-existent record keeping, and over budgeting and outright mismanaging well over $100,000 of taxpayer money. Which one of y'all would still have a job with the city? Any of you? No? So, if the WIFAC had 122 calls to NPD and fire department due to overdoses and assaults, if Westwood parking lot looked like what I just drove by coming here, Mr. Olson, you think you still have a job here? Probably not. I'll answer for you, probably not. Mr. Francisco, if you couldn't budget and you mismanaged taxpayer funds, would you be our finance director? Probably not. Mr. Mattingly, if you were firing individuals and hiring your own friends, would you have a job here? Probably not. So this is our audit right here. I don't even know how many pages it is, but 19 findings on what this shelter has done wrong. So, Rick, what's our liability? With an audit like this, with this kind of findings, let's say something happened to one of the clients there. Would they be able to use this audit to come after the city?
I think the issue for us has been, and the reason that we did it the way that we did it, is for tort claim purposes, there is an exemption for municipalities for acts or omissions by a independent contractor. So that really was the purpose of us doing it, and the manner that we did it was that individual is responsible for any potential liability as a result of the operation of that shelter. But I would add to that, since that audit has been sort of created, what we've been doing as a staff is going through all of the auditor's findings and trying to amend our contract so that we address all those issues. Right. So that going forward, again, we talked about the fact that when this was done initially, it was done in a little bit of a emergency, so to speak. So maybe some of the issues weren't necessarily anticipated. And now that we've had the opportunity for that shelter or that facility to be in operation, we have noted some of those deficiencies, and the parties are working towards language in the contract that would address those issues.
And just to note on what Mr. Knighton shared, we kind of walked ourselves through the timeline that when our initial negotiations a few years ago deteriorated and we reported back to council, we are out of answers. And Councilmember Foreman at the time asked what was currently being stored in the building at 109 West Gray, and you know, lots of document storage and some furniture that's waiting to be surplused, et cetera. And it was late September, early October, and the decision was, let's go move all that storage out, and we're going to occupy this space for shelter services. We were still at that point kind of anticipating it might be a 4-month conversation in a contract that was put together in very short order to make sure we could get the doors open in the timetable that council had prescribed. It did evolve into a much longer scenario than I think was originally anticipated in that contract. So staff has been drafting what would be an amendment to the existing agreement to address those issues that you've just outlined. So always looking for an opportunity for an improvement in the quality of services provided, whether we're providing it directly or it's being provided by a third party on our behalf. But that's been our mission.
All right, and I think it goes a lot further than just deficiencies with the contract. But I greatly respect Ms. Kalnick's audit, her recommendations, the city attorney's office recommendations with that, and the staff's recommendations. Some of them I agree with, some of them I don't, but I think they're a great starting point. But what we have right now is unsustainable. It's not safe. And so as far as this current contract, our current shelter, I wouldn't have it in my backyard. I wouldn't have it next to my kids' school. And because of that, I'm not going to vote to put it anywhere else here in Norman. What I would do is gladly talk about a sobering center. I think we heard some amazing ideas earlier, but it has to be run with Norman Regional, has to be in partnership with Red Rock, has to be in partnership with Cleveland County, the Sheriff's Department, NPD. We have to get people there safely. We have to provide them because that's what we have right now. We have an emergency shelter. It is an emergency shelter. That's what a sobering center is. But unlike a shelter, a sobering center does not enable hopelessness and despair and keep people homeless. It gets people to the resources, whether that's willfully or whether we have to force them. Because they're going there for a reason. We're getting them off our streets. We're making our streets safer. And so a sobering center, I'm all for it. We want to talk about a sobering center in a place, if we want to hire a resource and public health director, kind of like an Action Center 911 place that coordinates with all of our private charities, all of our churches, and can you call them and say, I'm homeless, I'm having mental health crisis. They know who to get you with. You want to hire that position? I'm all for it. But I cannot, in good conscience, keep what's going on in our city. It's a burden on all of us. It's a drain on our taxpayers. It's destroying our downtown. And it's not safe, not just for us, but for them. They are our least fortunate and our most vulnerable. And all we're doing is enabling that. So, yeah, that's where I'm at.
Councilmember Holman? Thank you.